what's up everybody? This is VisitJoan, and as a lot of you probably already know, The Sims 3 recently had its 10th anniversary. So I thought in order to celebrate, we could do some That Fateful Night related Sims 3 builds. And today we're going to be rebuilding the Sims 3 version of the Goth home. And this was actually Mortimer's childhood home, and Bella spent a lot of time here as a kid too. But it's also the house that the family lived in before they moved to Strangetown, which I'll get into that in a little bit. But this house... oh my goodness, I had a lot of problems doing this house, and most of them, if not all of them, stemmed from the fact that the room system in The Sims 4 seriously needs some work. Like, I had the biggest problem with the entryway in the house, because, you know, I would build the walls, and then I realized I kind of want to change it. I think I may need it to be 1 square longer, so I deleted the walls and then rebuilt the other walls. But the problem is now it doesn't recognize the new room as a room. And that's a problem because, well, number one, if you have seasons installed, it counts that room as being outdoors. So you have all the weather and the cold air and the warm air or whatever coming in, and even if you have a thermostat inside the house, inside that room, it doesn't work because, you know, it thinks it's outdoors. And the second problem is now there's no floor, where I'm trying to put a second floor. There's no floor. So I had to manually go in and put in the second floor. And I went off to do something else, and then I realized, wait a minute, I need to change this again. So I went and I dragged the wall like 1 tile over, and I went back up to the second floor, and there was a little overhang, like, sticking outside the house with the floor. So I'm like, okay, I want to delete this. And I go to delete it, and it deletes the whole floor for the whole room. And I'm like, okay. So what I had to do is I had to wall it off and delete that part of the floor and then delete the rest of the walls. And I cut all of this out because you don't really want to see me screw around with something I shouldn't have to screw around with. And then there was a problem with the entryway again where the foundation just suddenly disappeared, so I had to manually put in the foundation. It was just a pain in the butt. It's like EA really needs to fix this problem. And even after all of that, it still won't recognize it as a room. So when I go to do the 3rd floor now, only part of the floor is actually covered. So, you know, I take the floor and I drag it to cover it up, and it deletes the walls on the 2nd floor. Okay, here's the thing. I put the walls there because I want walls there. Just because I move a floor on the next floor up does not mean I want to delete walls on the 2nd floor. And I actually, you know, did some editing of this video before I actually started this voiceover, because this is the 2nd time I'm recording this voiceover, because the first one just did not turn out so well. But anyway, I went through the footage and I edited some of it just so I could see and remember exactly what problems I had, because I did this build like a half a month before I'm recording this right now. So anyway, another struggle I really had was the roofing. And if you've never done a mansard roof in The Sims, I'm going to give you some advice. Don't. Those things are really annoying because you have to align everything, and I'm trying to get everything, you know, perfectly aligned here, and there's like overhang and stuff like that. So I'm just sitting there like, okay, this works fine in The Sims 3, but it's not fine here. Is it because I messed up, or is it because The Sims 4 is a different game of The Sims 3? I don't know. I cut a lot of that stuff out simply because you guys don't want to see me screw around with the roofing. And I also had some trouble with the fencing, but, you know, it turned all right in the end. But anyway, you guys, I did make a few changes to this house just simply because this is the That Fateful Night version. Some things I didn't change that much because I feel like Mortimer and Bella wouldn't have changed that much, but some of it I had to because there's no creative style in The Sims 4, so I have to improvise, and I definitely think that Mortimer and Bella would have made some changes to the house when they moved in. But mainly the changes are because I furnished it for the family before they moved to Strangetown, and I'll get to that story in a little bit later in the voiceover. But I had to change a few things. Number one is that, you know, the attic, I kind of turned it into a couple of rooms. I kind of added Amanda's room up there, and then I added a bathroom for her, and I put like little bits of laundry up there because I figured, you know, they would have laundry somewhere. And also, what else I did is I put Alexander in Mortimer's old room because I thought that would kind of be like a little, you know, the father gives the room to his son. I think that's something that would happen. I also furnished it like really sparsely because I feel like, you know, they would have taken a lot of the stuff when they moved. but I know that they definitely figured they'd be back at this house periodically, so they didn't take everything. I mean, they're rich. They could just buy new stuff and furnish a new house. I kept that in mind when I was furnishing, so I didn't put in that many decorations or that many fancy stuff, just simply because nobody really lives here at the moment. Also, I added like a little altar in the yard, and that is because, if you know one thing about the Goth family homes, it means the houses are haunted. And that's really kind of a good thing, because the ghosts aren't just random people, they are family members. And what they do is they kind of watch over the family, and it's mainly Gunther and Cornelia. But they will sometimes come in to the house as ghosts at night, simply, just to kind of do a big checkup on the family, see how everybody's doing, kind of maybe do some cleaning or help the family out in some way, and even, in rare cases, warn them or give them advice. And also, they kind of protect them as well, because, if a burglar were to rob the house in the middle of the night, the first line of defense would be the family ghosts. If somebody were to come and try to harm the family ghosts would, scare that guy away. So it's, a good thing that this house is pretty much haunted. It also kind of deters burglars. Like, nobody's going to think about trying to steal from this house because they all know it's haunted. Anyway, another thing that I kind of kept with this house, they didn't do in other versions of Goth houses, with the exception of one computer in the office, because let's face it, if they were going to come back, they would probably need one computer. There are no electronics in this home. And that is because I think they would have taken all the electronics with them, but also because, well, there's a reason for this. And a lot of people think it's because of whatever happened to Lolita Goth, whoever she was. But honestly, if you ask me, Lolita Goth doesn't even exist. Like, I honestly think Maxis just threw her in the game just to troll us. Like, just, they love doing that. I honestly think so. And, funny story, in my Japanese class, we were doing an exercise where we were looking at, in Japanese, they abbreviate certain things. And one of them was like, what the heck is this? Nobody could figure it out. And it turns out their teacher's like, oh yeah, that's Gothic Lolita. And I just start laughing because the first thing that comes to my mind. well, you guys know where that's going. But anyway, that's a funny. But the reason there really is no electronics, and there was not in Mortimer's childhood home, and there wasn't in Mortimer's childhood home, is because Gunther and Cornelia, they're kind of conservative. They're really old-fashioned, and they just didn't use them. They didn't need them. They only had, like, Gunther's computer, and that was pretty much it. So, now on to, the Goth family. Basically, the Goth family is old money, and if you don't know what that means that they've been rich forever. Half of the money that Mortimer and Bella have, they got from his parents, and probably his aunt as well, but that's a different story. But anyway, this was the first house that was built in town. It's on like a little hill, like looking over the town, so it's actually quite nice. It's not the fanciest house in town, but it is pretty fancy compared to the other houses in this town. And the Goths are very influential in town, and they still are, despite the fact that they have moved out. And like I said, I will get to that in a little bit. And the reason they are influential is there's this thing called the internet, and that was what allowed Mortimer to feel okay to go with Cassandra when she moved, because he could still, be on the internet and be influential in Pleasant View and all this other stuff. But back when Mortimer was growing up, this town was known as Sunset Valley, and he lived in this house with his parents, and his parents were Gunther and Cornelia Goth. And so Gunther was a businessman. He was a CEO of a really prominent company, and he was there for a while. Once Mortimer started growing up, he was really just unhappy with the direction that the town was going. And there were a lot of things that he's like, well, I kind of wish I could fix this and fix that. And then he realized, well, you know what? I kind of can. So he decided he was going to run for mayor. And so what he did is he gave the CEO position to a woman named Nancy Landgraf. And those of you that are familiar with The Sims, you recognize that name. But this did cause kind of a moral dilemma for Gunther because, like I said, he's really more conservative. And there were two vice presidents vying for the CEO position. One of them was Nancy, and the other one was a man named Nick Alto. Now, Nick Alto got his fortune through really questionable, sketchy, downright unethical business practices. And to be 100% honest, his wife was kind of the one that was wrecking Sunset Valley, because she was a politician. And so Gunther kind of felt like, the CEO position should go to a man, but he knew that Nick Alto wasn't the right man for the job. And so after a lot of thinking, he decided, you know what? I'd rather have the company be in the hands of a woman than be in the hands of a jerk that's going to destroy it all. So he kind of upgraded his stance on that. Like I said, he was more conservative, and that's just kind of how he viewed things, and that was a big deal at the time. But anyway, he ran for mayor, and he won. So he became the mayor of Sunset Valley. And honestly, he was a good mayor. But one of those things that he did when he was the mayor of Sunset Valley is he took Sunset Valley and took a couple of neighboring suburbs and together founded the town of Pleasant View. He did a couple of terms as mayor, and then he, decided not to run again. So after that, he was offered the job of the dean at the business school at Sim State University. And he did that for the rest of his life. He never retired. He was also pretty much a frugal person. I mean, I don't know why. This man was rich all his life. He didn't need to be. But I kind of feel like that would be just unnecessary expenses. He really did treat his employees fairly well. He gave them a very good salary and good insurance. And his, philosophy was that those things and his family, those were worth spending money on. Those were worthy expenses of his money. Electronics probably weren't, and that's where he was more frugal. When it just came to, luxuries and stuff like that, he was just really more frugal with the money, but with things like, his employees and his family, to him, that was, worth spending money on. So Cornelia, she really was one of a kind, you guys, and you can kind of tell because she has her hair, it's dyed bright violet. She was a housewife, in being a neat freak, she probably spent most of the time cleaning the house all the time. But, she took care of the house. She was happy doing that. She also did a lot of charity work, and she kind of wanted to be a gardener at some point, but it just didn't work out. She wasn't really good at all of that. She was mostly good-mannered in public most of the time, and that's because she's a grumpy person. She and Gunther both were grumpy people. That's where Mortimer gets it from. You can really tell that's how big of an effect Bella had on the gene pool of the family, because the grumpy trait pretty much ends with Mortimer. Yes, she had good manners. She wasn't snooty most of the time in public, but at home, if she got into a bad mood, she could really let it loose. And also another quirky thing about her is that she just didn't like flirting. I imagine at some point she was just like, dang it, Gunther, quit with this flirting nonsense, and if you love me, just say something. And, we all know what happened after that. Anyway, funny story about Cornelia now. So, I was playing The Sims 3, last March, and this is before I got The Sims 4. So, I was playing a game, and my sim was throwing a bachelorette party. And so, I forgot to put the starting time on, the invitations. So, guests started coming right away. It was, 10 in the morning. And so I'm like, okay, I'd better start making food. So my sim started making pancakes. And while she was doing that, I realized that there was this one corner of the counter that was just really dirty. And I'm like, oh, great, I gotta clean this up. So I cancel out the pancakes interaction. And I say, okay, clean this up. So she starts cleaning. And then Cornelia Goth, neat freak that she is, comes over, sacks the pancakes, sticks it in the trash compactor, which then promptly breaks. Yeah, Cornelia Goth broke my trash compactor. And that wasn't the only thing she broke. I mean, I don't know what else, if she broke anything else, but there were sinks spewing water everywhere, and Jocasta Bachelor ended up passed out on the floor, and it was actually kind of funny. But long story short, we now know the real reason the Goths don't have any electronics in their house is because Cornelia is like SpongeBob's cousin Stanley and breaks everything she touches. No, I'm kidding. That's not actually the reason. I just thought, that would be a funny thing to share. But, together, Gunther and Cornelia, they really were a good match. When it came time to children, they were just one and done. We only really want one child. And they actually did let their marriage slip for a while. When Mortimer was a child, they started realizing, wait, what are we doing? And they really made the effort to reconnect. And that's kind of my word renew was important, that with him and Bella to put that relationship as a priority. And so Mortimer now, like I said, he was an only child. And guys, I know the struggle, guys, because I'm an only child too. So I can really relate to Mortimer's childhood and the fact that, a lot of the stuff he would have been through when he was an only child, I have been through as well. But he was honestly, okay with it because he had Bella. He and Bella, they spent a lot of time together. They were really close. They were childhood best friends. And I don't even know if they even remember meeting, or that's how long they have been close. But, while he was a kid, he discovered that he really had this love of learning and love of science and love of teaching others things too. And he discovered his ambition, and that kind of shaped the person he became to go really far in the scientific community. Also, when he was a kid, there was a new private school that opened up in Sunset Valley. Gunther pretty much pulled the strings. He's like, yes, Mortimer, I got you into this private school. And Mortimer just didn't want to go because, he liked being with Bella. He liked, going to the school that he was going to. And he's just said, Dad, I really don't want to go. I like where I am. And there was kind of a big argument about it. And Cordelia was just like, really, Gunther, really, you're gonna sacrifice our son's happiness for something you want. So, long story short, Mortimer got into private school, but he didn't go. But anyway, he and Bella started dating in high school, and you guys know the rest of the story. The Goths did live in this house before they moved to Strangetown, and Cassandra was praying for a wedding to Dawn. Mortimer pulled her aside, and he asked her, have you thought about where you're going to live yet? And she said, well, we're talking about that. I mean, we could move into Dawn's condo, but she wanted to have a family right away, and that condo wasn't really all that family friendly, so they really would have only been okay there for about a year. And they also could have moved into, the house that she grew up in, but they currently had a tenant there, and so, they were really just confused, okay, where are we going to go after we get married? And then Mortimer said, why don't you just live here? I have very fond memories of growing up in this house, and I want my grandchildren to have those memories too. And Cassandra's like, well, where are you going to live? And he's like, oh, I'm going to move in with... Oh, great. I have to break her up. Well, he's like, well, I'm going to move in with Dina, because he was engaged to Dina at the time. And so that's pretty much what happened. But where Alexander's concerned, Alexander really did not want to live with Dina. And so Mortimer was just like, okay, asking Cassandra, is it okay if Alexander stays with you for a couple of months? Because, he figured it would be a few months, and then, Alexander would realize that he really wanted to live with his father, and that maybe he'd, come around to Dina, but that, of course, never happened. Because by the time that would have happened, Mortimer realized that Dina was not who she said she was. And Anne was on the way, and he was beginning to realize, that she really only wanted his money, and that she had tricked him, and it was just one big mess, and he kind of knew that Alexander would not be happy living under the same roof as that. I'm not going to swear. But anyway, and for Mortimer, the house ended up being just a place for him to sleep, because he and Anne would spend a lot of time over at, what was now Cassandra's house. And as for the move was originally supposed to be temporary. They're like, okay, we need some help for a couple of years over at the Strangetown Science Facility. Cassandra, why don't you come help us out? And, she kind of wanted to separate her career from her father's, and it was a good opportunity. So she said, yeah, you know what? Let's go. So, like I said, Mortimer felt comfortable moving because, he was able to keep the influential position of the town thanks to things like the internet. So, yes, the move was originally designed to be temporary, but after they were reunited with Bella, they kind of figured, okay, let's just stay put for right now and just see how things go. And, well, there was all this, stuff that happened. And if you want to know, just go read that Fateful Night. Link is in the description below. But after everything that happened, they knew that their family needed some stability. And so they said, okay, you know what, let's just stay here for right now. And, that was a good thing because Bella liked being close to her friends, and Mortimer was happy being close to the high-tech science facilities. And, they probably will come back to Pleasant View eventually, but it probably won't be until after Randy's done with high school, and it definitely won't be until after Alexander's done with high school. So that's where that stands. Anyway, you guys, I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and I'll be seeing you next time. Bye!